What is going on, everyone? So in this video, we're going to take a look at the ARCA-SWISS, the F-Metric with the Micrometric Orbix control. So the backbone of the camera is this guy right here. So this is the monorail setup, and this is kind of a two-part setup. So you have the bed here of the monorail, then you have the rail itself, which slides in it. So it's a telescoping design. And so this means that whether I have a really long lens or a really short lens, I can have a rail that sort of adapts to both of them. And you'll notice that there's a gap right here, and that's because the camera itself rides on a 6-inch long rail that's going to slot in place there, which is kind of one of the reasons why this is a hybrid between a monorail camera and a field camera, because it has sort of some of the characteristics of both of them. But for getting things started out, we're going to take the rail here and we're going to drop it into the quick release here on top of my ARCA-SWISS cube head, and it's going to lock it in place just like that. Now the rail here, you do have a couple controls. So if I were to loosen this little lever right here, it allows me to slide it in place. It's very, very smooth. I simply lock that down there to lock it in place the rest of the way. I'm going to leave a gap over here so that I can slot the camera into there. So the camera itself is right here. And one thing you might notice is that this is a particularly slim camera. So to get this set up, I'm going to go ahead and flip the rail around here just like this. And I'm going to slot this right here into the larger rod, just like so. And I'm going to latch the little lever there to lock it in place. So that's all there is really to get the camera set up. Now all I have to do is I have to pull the rear standard back to kind of get it more in the shooting position. And for doing that, I have my focus knobs right here. So if I loosen the lock, then all I do is I just focus it back like this. I can speed things up a little bit by kind of pushing my finger on the front of it just to give a little more momentum there as I turn it, so it doesn't take as much effort to turn the knob. So I'm going to pull this back to about where it'd be if I was using pretty much a normal lens, somewhere in about there. I have the long bellows on this camera, and the reason for that is I really like to use a 600mm lens, and I'd be pushing it a little bit with the standard bellows. So I have more generous bellows here, which is pretty nice. So now I'm going to go ahead and flip this guy back around here so we can see the front. And I'm going to show you how the lenses attach, because this is a really clever design, and this is the best design that I've seen as far as mounting lenses to the camera. So this right here is my Nikon 300mm 5.6. This is my normal lens. I use this lens a ton. Pretty heavy lens. There's a 95mm thread size there on the front. But this is mounted to an ARCA-SWISS 141 board. And there's kind of a quick release design here on the front standard, which is nice. All I do is I drop the bottom of the board into this little lip on the bottom, and now I just push it in there like that, and it clicks in place. So this mechanism right here is responsible for holding the lens in place. If I want to release it, all I do is I turn that, and then I can pull the board out just like that. So it is super fast to set up, and you get that nice click to know that everything is locked in place. So let's take a look at some of the controls on the front of the camera. So we'll start with the focus. So this is shared between the front and the rear standard, so either one can be focused the exact same way. Though in practice, focusing with the rear standard is going to be a much better option. So with the front here, if I loosen this knob right here, now I can simply focus it in and out just like that. So very, very simple. It's a geared mechanism, which is really nice. And there's lots of precision there, which is awesome to work with. If I go over here, I have two controls. I have a knob as well as a lever. And if I release this gray lever, just like that, I can take the whole front standard and I have a base tilt. Now, on this particular camera, this is not the way I'm going to be tilting the front of the lens, but this is a way that, let's say that if I wanted to get some extreme front rise, I want to have where the rails pointed upward, then kind of straighten out the standards. There's ways of doing that because it actually has indications there as far as degrees. But we'll talk about the actual front tilt in a moment. That's going to be set with this knob right here. So my next knob is this guy. So if I were to loosen this right here, this is where we have our front swing control. So this is something that I don't use a ton, but it does really come in handy when you need it. Basically, it's a way of just turning your plane of focus kind of from one side to the other. There's a zeroed out position there right in the middle, but you can lock it in place anywhere that you want. Over here, we have a geared control for the front shift. And then on this side over here, flip this around a little bit more so you get a little better angle at it, we have a geared front rise and fall. So see, if I turn this, I'm able to move the front up and down, and it's just going to stay exactly where you leave it, which is nice. There are some indicators kind of on the back side here that you guys can't see as far as trying to line things up if you want. And there's also a level right there, which is kind of nice, as well as right here on the front also. So one of the really cool things about this camera is what they call the Micrometric Orbix control, which is a really fancy way of saying it's an asymmetrical front tilt. And this is going to be one of the controls I'm going to use a ton on this camera, so I paid extra in order to get the Micrometric Orbix control. So if I didn't have that, I'd have to accomplish all my front tilt as base tilt. But one of the disadvantages to base tilt is that as you move that front, it actually changes the focus quite dramatically. So now let's take a look at the back of the camera. So this is where we have some more of our controls back here. A lot of it's going to be pretty similar to what the front has. So down here we have our focusing. So the bigger knob is going to be the locking knob. The smaller knob is going to be the knob to adjust the geared focusing. Super smooth, super accurate, and then you can just lock it in place with a larger knob there. On this side over here, the gray lever is going to be for our rear tilt, just like that. So it's going to be a base tilt. And then we're going to have a knob right here, which is going to adjust our swing. And again, we have sort of indented positions in there where when you lock it in place, it's going to stay there, but the indented position basically means it's going to kind of find its way back to the zeroed out position, which makes it really fast to set up. When it comes to the back, you have a really, really good ground glass. This is a ground glass that's so bright that you really don't even need to have a dark cloth. I mean, I'm going to use a dark cloth, don't get me wrong, but if I had to set up a photo and I didn't have a dark cloth, I could do it. And then also we have a bail back design, which is quite nice. So if I wanted to insert a film holder there, all I have to do is click this open like that. And now I could insert a film holder in there, and then you just lift it open a little bit more like that, and then it's going to close. So it's a very nice design and avoids putting a lot of tension on the back if you're trying to force something open. So a very clean design for that. And if you want to do a vertical composition, all you have to do is change the orientation of the ground glass on the back of the camera. So if I go ahead and lock this down here, there's this little lever here that you flip upward. If you do that, it will release the ground glass so that at that point I can flip it around for a vertical composition. But overall, I'm very, very happy with the design of the camera. It's strong, it's relatively light for being a monorail camera. And I think the only real challenge when bringing a camera like this into the field is trying to find a case that's going to protect it very, very well. And I'm still kind of working on that. I found some solutions I think are going to work very well, but I'll need to take on some test hikes just to make sure everything works well. Because the challenge on this camera is that the bellows themselves, as you can probably see right about here, the bellows overhang the metal frame for the rear standard. So as you collapse it down all the way, the bellows stick out a little bit wider than any of the structure of the camera. So it needs to be in a case that is not going to put any weight on the bellows in a weird way, and also is going to protect them quite nicely. And I think I have a couple cases that will do the job quite well, but I'm going to have to take them on some test hikes just to make sure everything works really well. I'm really looking forward to using this camera as my primary camera and having that level of strength as well as precision, as well as keeping it relatively lightweight. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you around next time.